Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Dracula, Season 1, Episode 1. It is simply called... I didn't have that ready. I apologise. The Rules of the Beast is the title of the episode.
You were going to say, pilot or just episode 1, and then realised you never actually checked, did you?
Well, it's not that I didn't check. I knew because it came up at the start. The title was actually in the episode, so I knew there was a title. I just didn't remember what it was. But yes, Rules of the Beast is the title of the episode. This is the premiere, the pilot, if you will, of this new Sherlock-style show. And by that I mean it is 3 90-minute episodes for the season, and possibly more.
And it's from the Sherlock creators.
Yes, it's from Moffat and Gatiss, who are the writers on this. So we will start spoiler free because it is in episode 1, and it does have some twists and turns in it. I mean, even if you've read Dracula, there's definitely some new things about it.
The first third is okay, it's Dracula. There's a new couple of little bits are here, but it feels fairly traditional in many regards for the first third or so of this episode, and then it throws a lot of that out the window.
So we'll start spoiler free. We'll give you a warning before we go into spoilers halfway through, and we'll get into it. So this premiered today, New Year's Day. So
what a way to start the year.
So yeah, first thing I want to say is who thought this garbage was okay to broadcast on TV, and where do I write my angry letter? Because this...
I believe you complained to Ofcom actually.
This was absolute, to quote Tim Vergulish, garbage. It was garbage. This was laughably bad. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it. I wasn't sure if it was going to be the take on Dracula I was wanting or hoping for, but I did not expect to be laughing at how bad it was as I was watching it. I was not expecting to be laughing at the performance of the actor who was playing Dracula. I was not expecting to be laughing at the over-the-top editing and direction, which couldn't stand still for 2 seconds.
Nope. Do you know what? I was not... I wasn't super enthused by the first trailer, but I didn't think it looked terrible. It looked like, okay, this could be okay. Which is why we checked it out at all. And then in the last week or two, there's been the odd news story about it. Because they're in the press cycle, and I was getting worried when because there was one question, because Mark Gatiss is gay, so there's a lot of fans asking, okay, how are they doing anything with Dracula's sexuality? And Moffat answered this and said, he's always fed off both men and women. He's not bisexual, he's bi-homicidal. And I went, oh dear, that's not a thing. That's when the worry started.
It starts off pretty bad, but not offensively stupid, right? It starts off just kind of okay, it's doing Dracula. There was some weird edits, there was some weird choices that I wasn't quite getting.
But it was recognisably Dracula. It
was the second that Dracula himself appeared, maybe about 10 minutes in, if that I had this feeling of, oh no.
I will say I wasn't worried immediately because, as Dracula, he starts off kind of old and decrepit.
He sounded like Borat. His accent was terrible.
Yeah, sure. No, there was that. But I was like, maybe it's going to smooth out when he... Because to be fair, the accent does smooth out as well.
He starts being a bad Borat / Meerkat impression and turns into really generic EastEnders actor. I don't understand.
No, I'm not saying that's necessarily better. I'm just saying, I was willing to kind of go with it to a point when he was at in the old age stage, and I was like, okay, maybe they're just playing things up and it'll kind of relax once we get into the groove of it. It did not, but yeah.
I never drink wine. High five. I also
give him credit. He at least paused after drink.
But his delivery was terrible. I'm not saying
it was good.
It pointed out how much worse it was than normal, just because he tried to do that line. Which
is a very classic line.
Yeah. I can hear Bela Lugosi saying it in my head, and it's not that it has to be the same as Bela Lugosi, but it came off as a bad impression of Bela Lugosi, which is why it felt bad.
No, I agree.
From then on, the rest of the episode just did nothing but get more convoluted, get worse in terms of its direction and style. I felt like the director was so like just there was no confidence. Like sometimes we talk about confident directing where it's like no, they know when to let the camera just sit there, or know when to like slowly do something, or know when, like this camera is constantly moving, it's constantly cutting, it's doing spirals around people at various points.
A lot, yeah.
It's like if there was a moment when he's first entering the castle at the start. And the like bats like start going up, but as he chaps the door, the bats start like flying away, and it does this low angle shot spinning around him, and I'm like,
the bats are already moving. You don't need to move as well.
I'm like, this just feels like a music video now. Like, what are you doing? This is not the atmosphere, the slow brooding terror of Dracula that I like and know from the book or from better adaptations. This is. I don't even know, and that's the thing. So at this point, I'm already thinking, okay, this is just a really badly made version of Dracula. It goes beyond that as it goes on because it starts adding in its own things. It starts adding in its own insane new things, and
you know what, like there are a lot of times where I'm like, yeah, add things yourself, right? Do some stuff, but just look, if you're going to adapt Dracula for TV. Just do bloody Dracula.
Well,
just once.
There was one part of the start where I actually almost gave it a compliment in my head because it did this thing where like clearly after the initial part of Dracula, which is where Harker's in the house, we start off with he's in a convent in Hungary, and like these nuns are coming to speak to him, and they're going to ask him about what happened to him. And I thought, oh, this is a neat way to sort of adapt the because in the book everything's told in hindsight through letters and journals and things like that. So this is a neat way to do a TV version of that, where we do the classic thing where someone's asking him questions, so we get the bookends of the like this is who he's telling the story to. Right?
Yeah,
makes sense.
I have no problem with that as a concept. I think it was a smart adaptation choice, like you say, because it is a different medium. You have to change things to make it work in that way.
That said, I do think they used his narration too often, and it came off really hokey. And we cut back to the nun for a one-liner, maybe a little bit too often, where she'd have like some sort of really snarky little thing to say, and. I can't talk about it yet.
Okay. Something I can say that bugged me relatively early on, probably about 20, 30 minutes in.
Mm-hmm.
But I can say it without spoiling anything. Is there's a bit where the nun addresses something about there was something written in English, and did you not find that weird? And the show is not exactly it's not doing subtitled. Everything's presented to us in English, which again is fine, right? You're just okay. You want to just make this in English? That's okay. I'm fine with that. But there was never any impression that they were even not speaking English until that line came up, where I was like, wait, were they not supposed to be doing English the whole time?
No, I think they were, because I think the whole idea is that because everyone's talking to Jonathan and he only speaks English, presumably.
Well, that's the thing. In the book, he speaks German to everyone.
Ah, you're right. I didn't get that impression in the show, though.
No, that's the thing. Which is why I was like, well, why would it be weird then that something's written in English, given that everyone's talking to him in English, so everyone clearly knows English and knows he's there?
I don't know.
This is why it was kind of weird to me.
I don't know what to tell you. Honestly,
there was a point where about 20 minutes in, we messaged each other, and this is kind of terrible. And I was like, do we have to go through it all?
Actually, there was a point about 45 minutes. This is a 90-minute episode, remember, so it was a long one. 45 minutes in, Cora says, we're not even halfway done. I already feel like I know what I want to say in the review. Can we just stop now? And I have integrity.
I take it back, because there are things that this thing does in that last 20 minutes that... Oh boy.
This is the funny thing. The first half is really, really, really bad. It's really over the top in its direction, and that makes it really boring. There's no atmosphere, there's no tension.
It's Dracula.
Right? But there's nothing like new to talk about in terms of material. All the crazy new shit's in the back half, and that gets really wacky. The one thing that's okay, full spoilers. I think honestly at this point, everything else I want to say is all in the spoiler territory, so full spoilers.
And also, it's terrible. Don't waste your time anyway.
Right? Yes. And by the way, there is no chance in hell we are doing episodes 2 and 3 of this. I am not watching a second more of this.
Do you know what? If this hadn't been an hour and a half, maybe maybe just for shits and giggles, I could have suffered through it, given how wacky it gets. But I'm not sitting through another 3 hours of this.
Yeah, I can't do it. So full spoilers from this point on for episode 1 of Dracula. So. The one thing it kind of adds in early on is that Dracula, and this is, I felt like a really bullshit excuse just so that he can turn into an English person. over the course of the episode, but it was like, oh, he learns and like it takes things from the person he's drinking. So the English language, the way he speaks, the accent, all of it comes from drinking the blood of Jonathan.
Yeah, that was something that I was okay with. Right, I didn't hate it.
It rubbed me the wrong way because it just felt like an excuse so that this actor could then do his English accent, which actually almost was worse than the bad accent he was doing because it felt so, I don't know, like Cockney. I mean, like it was so not Dracula.
I preferred it because at least it felt natural to him, whereas obviously before it was really bad. So I think I'd rather this.
Admittedly, my problem might be more the characterization of the character more than the accent itself, because he is very cocky. He's very jokey, even a lot of the ways, and that's not necessarily what I associate with Dracula. Is a jokey character who's doing wisecracks. I expect that from, I don't know, say Spike on the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Couldn't do it, could you? Couldn't bloody do it. You couldn't give me one day of the year.
We're talking about vampires. We're talking about vampires.
Just one day. Just give me something to start the year off in a not terrible place.
In fact, not only was the delivery of I only drink, or I never drink wine, right? Not only was that bad, they had to like kind of redo it as again later in the episode when he sees him drinking the blood out of the glass and he's like, I thought you said you didn't drink. He's like, wine. And then he just continues. I'm like, why did we have to do it again? did we have to?
Once was fine. Not that once was good because it wasn't well done, but once was fine. I get why you want to do that line, right?
Yeah. So, okay, fine, right? So we cut back to the nuns a bit more often where they're interrogating him. And Jonathan in these parts is bald and he's got like weird deformations.
He reminded me a lot of like what in my imagination is often Renfield.
Sure. Well, yes, is the thing. They're basically making him Renfield.
Yeah, but immediately, like I was like, okay, I'm kind of getting that.
Yeah, which is something I've seen them do before. Like I've seen them in some adaptations. They take away Harker and just make Renfield the guy who goes to Transylvania.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I'm not sure which version that's in.
And then,
I've definitely seen at least one like that.
And then there's also this where they just make Harker Renfield, and it's like why can't we have both characters? Just do both characters, you bastards.
It's especially in this is 4.5 hours to adapt Dracula. You got space to do both characters in that. Well, in theory. Not if you're going to do all this other bullshit.
Yeah, in a way, it kind of did what I wanted in the sense that it just devoted the first episode to that first part where he's in Transylvania, right? But it didn't do it in the slow brooding way where he's quietly, going through the house. Like, because this is the other thing. There's a part of this episode where it's like, oh, he was trying to like look through the castle during the daylight, right? And he couldn't get out. It was like Blair Witch. Like, no matter which way he turned, he ended up back where he was, and it was like a labyrinth and blah 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 blah. But there's like no fun in it and like in discovering it. There's no like him like realizing that slowly and having the psychological horror. It's just a spinning shot above the castle spinning around as it quickly cuts between him looking down all these hallways. And I'm like, why are you montaging this? This is boring as shit. Like, have him slowly feel the dread that he can't escape.
Yeah, I don't understand. There's many baffling decisions in this.
Yeah, it's very baffling. Well, the first baffling decision before I knew that I hated it, before I knew it was terrible, right? Was right at the start where not the prologue sort of setting up the narrative bookends, but once it cuts straight to him getting off the carriage, right, and he's like, oh, we can't go any further towards the castle. Like, oh, you're cutting out the bit where he's in the inn in the town. All right, fine, fair. I get cutting that. That's fine. You can just start here.
It's definitely non-essential. Because they still have him get given the crucifix, which is kind of the big part from that opening.
Yeah, it does feel a little bit rushed that it just cuts to her all just giving it to him already. Like, it's just that's it here. Like, we cut to the important part. It takes away a lot of the actual build up of things. But
it does, but I'm willing to let that slide at the opening here.
But we can start with that, sure. I thought it was weird that it then cut to narration of him talking to the nuns, and he was like, because they make a big deal as his driver will find you, and we don't really get, like, I was expecting an entrance of the driver where he was kind of creepy and where he's sort of like maybe Jonathan was a bit nervous, but thought, oh, okay, he's the driver, fine. He's a bit weird, but we'll go with it, right? No. There's a montage and he's already in the cart with this driver, and like we don't actually get to see how creepy the driver is until he's actually off the carriage at the end of the journey when he's at the castle entrance. And I felt like, why would you skip over the entrance of the driver? That's...
As long as this episode is, it feels like there's an extended cut out there somewhere.
It does. It feels like there's just stuff cut out of the story, like left and right, to get through it as quick as possible. Because we have to get to the new stuff.
Oh boy! Like this episode probably could have been 2 hours quite comfortably, and
Yes.
have felt well paced.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah. Which maybe goes to show it should have been 2 1-hour episodes as opposed to one 90-minute episode, but
Possibly. Yeah.
that's a debate for another.
That's a different debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause if you do that, you don't get to end your episode 1 with what you do.
So let's talk about the two big twists, the two big reveals. Reveal number 1 is that the second nun who's in the room with Saint... was it Maud? Was it Maud? No, that's a movie that's coming out soon. Sister Agatha, that was it. Sister Agatha.
Yes.
So she's the main one who's talking, and she's kind of like, she's a bit of a wise ass. She's constantly, she's got a lot more of a personality for a nun than you'd expect, right? She's a bit of a,
Yeah, she's constantly like, I don't believe in any of this shit.
yeah. But there's another one who's silent, and the first reveal is that this is actually Mina, who gets mentioned a lot throughout the story, and him looking at the photo and like, you know, like, I'm in love with my fiance, I need to get back to her. And the whole twist here is that like he says, I can't remember what she looks like, and you know, sister whatever says, yes, well, you've proven that, and then it reveals that the one sitting next to her the whole time has been Mina.
As much as it was a cheap twist, I didn't hate it in the sense that they had established earlier in the episode that he'd forgotten what she looked like. So this wasn't like the very first time we were hearing about this, and then like, bang, look, she's there. So in terms of just a pure writing, you know, setup and payoff, this felt fair.
Oh yeah, I don't necessarily hate this on its own. What I did hate, a little bit later in the same room, and it made me laugh out loud because it was so funny, was the bat hitting Mina in the face.
It was quite funny.
It was like someone threw a fake bat at her face, and then it cuts to, of course, the exterior shot with all the CG bats are all, you know, swarming.
You say it was like that. That's probably what it was.
It's like it looked like someone threw a bat at her face, and like she just sort of screeched because it was a shock, and it made me laugh so much. And Jonathan like tries to kill himself with a stake because he's you know, he's kind of like, because he's not really a vampire yet, but he's kind of becoming one, so he sort of stakes himself. It's a whole thing. And there's a rule here that we find out later that a vampire can't commit suicide, which I don't know if that was ever a thing in the book.
I don't recall it personally. It's not a rule I necessarily hate.
Well, I think I hate it because to me, it's, you know, it's a scientific thing, right? If wood hits the heart, they're dead. That's it.
I mean, yeah, this is your insane level of rules and logic.
But that doesn't really make sense to me. Like, well, once you start saying, "Oh no, it matters who's putting it in," it becomes magic bullshit.
No, I don't think it becomes magic. I think it's just only it doesn't. You know. It's only their hands, because it's not like, okay, it has to be someone in particular. It can be another vampire. It just can't be him.
Is this like when you tickle your own foot, it doesn't work because you know your fingers are doing it?
Yeah, I guess.
Is that what you're saying? This is to tickle your own foot?
I guess I am saying that.
Okay.
And I don't hate it in terms of the mechanic of what it sets up in terms of character, the idea of making the suicidal vampire reliant on someone else. I think that has potential in another story.
All right. So basically, Dracula's there. He's a wolf out the front, and Sister Agatha's all ready for this, and she's like, "No, I know who you are. You're Count Dracula." Blah blah blah. And we get now. This is the thing. In a different show, I might have appreciated how disgusting this transformation was, because he doesn't just like pop into being a, you know, Dracula again.
He kind of rips himself out of the wolf.
He's butt ass naked and he rips himself out of the wolf, and it's like a birth. You know, it's like a human sized chest burster.
I actually think it looks pretty good.
It was the one horror thing in the whole thing, the whole episode, that felt impressive on its own. I think the way it was edited made it feel much worse though.
No, that's fair. I think just visually on its own, I think it looked quite good. The way it was edited is a different question entirely.
But he gets up and he's naked and he's taunting them, and there was actually a point around here where I went, well, I guess she's our Van Helsing, because she seems to know everything, and she's the one that's kind of studied vampires
she's
and
filling that role.
Yeah. But they actually do the kind of the cheap little like reveal where Dracula gets to, because she taunts him at one point by cutting her own hand, and like sort of like, because she's basically showing the rest of the sisters, because they've all got stakes and they're all a bit scared, and again, there's a conceptually here, there's a little idea here where he's like, all I have to do is convince one of you to invite me in, and you're all screwed. That's all it takes is one.
Yeah, there's actually some dialogue here that I do quite like. And Agatha's like, yeah, but what can you offer that would break any of us? And he's like, eternal life. And being nuns, she's like, well, we're already convinced we've got that anyway, so you're gonna have to try harder.
Yeah, and she taunts him and shows that he's the weak one because he starts obviously like sniffing the blood, and he's like, I want blood. And,
Yeah.
but once he tastes the blood, because again they've established that he gets information about the person through the blood. Like if he drinks someone's blood, he'll start to know more about them. He'll know about their loved ones, their name, their history, yada yada yada.
This felt weird, her willingly doing this and giving up that information that he can use on her, given that she knew this was a thing.
I mean, you could almost argue that she wants him to know that, like, she's the one coming for him. Like, yes, like
maybe, but because he starts going, "Oh, your name, your name, oh, from Holland," and there's a point where and she's like, "Oh yeah, accent's a giveaway, whatever," and she's like, "You're gonna have to do better than that," and he goes, "Oh, hang on, I got something."
Yeah, and then
she actually looks worried, like, "What does he have?" And I think, well, if you're worried that he could have got something, maybe don't give him your blood, you stupid idiot.
Yeah. Well, was it? Did she definitely know that was a thing that he would?
Yeah, because she speculated with it with Jonathan.
Fair enough. So she, he yells out Van Helsing. Her name is actually Agatha Van Helsing. So
because of course it is.
Because we do a bit of a twist. Which is fine. I'm almost, my only dislike of this is that they felt the need to try and make it a little twist. Like I don't. Yeah, fine. That's our Van Helsing in this show. Cool.
A Dracula story needs a Van Helsing. That is acceptable.
I think them trying. They're basically doing the Star Trek Into Darkness thing here. They're doing the can, right. That's what this is.
Yeah, they're like, it's not this isn't Dracula. Van Helsing. This isn't there. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got us. It totally is.
Yeah, that's what it felt like to me anyway. So I didn't like that element of it.
Yeah, I get that.
We glossed over all the horrible scenes where Jonathan like finds the crypt, and then Dracula has him up on the roof, and like the sunlight's kind of there, and he's in the shadow, he's in the shade, but Jonathan's in the sunlight.
We got all the stuff with the bride.
Oh yeah, he finds the bride who wants to, obviously drink his blood and whatever. Jonathan gets his head snapped, or his neck snapped. So all these things, but so Jonathan's the one who lets him in because he's not really dead because he can't commit suicide, and. Again, it was this weird thing where the tone for me was all over the place. Where, like, I could have almost loved the moment that was coming up here, where they all put their heads down to pray, and then when their heads come back up, the lead nun who was given the prayer, like she's decapitated, and he's just like holding the head, like it turned into like a farcical comedy at this point. As he was doing like, okay, whoever catches the head gets eaten next, and things like that.
Yeah, it was chucking the bouquet at the wedding is what he was doing with the head. And
I'm like, I don't know. I mean, right from the very first time, the first time that he smells blood back at the start of the episode, when Jonathan's cuts himself, and it does this thing where he sort of speeds into frame. He goes, it's like, that was goofy. This is goofy, bad B-movie vampire shit.
Yeah, because that other dude's going to notice this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there was no subtlety to anything in this. And if your argument is that, they want a camp like, over the top.
Sorry. Were you expecting subtlety from Moffat?
I don't know what I expected, but, like, I'm just saying, like, some subtlety with these things would go a long way. This was the impression that people do at parties when they're trying to be a Dracula at Halloween. This was not... proper acting. And the one that really made me laugh actually is before Jonathan kills himself, he's coming into Mina, and there's a shot close up of him coming towards her, and his fangs are kind of coming in, and I can't remember what he's whispering, but he's kind of like whispering something as he's doing the hissing, as he's like sort of like thirsting for her, and it made me laugh because it was so goofy. Like, there's so much in this episode that came off as goofy to me, and the worst thing you can do, because the thing I love about the book is the atmosphere. There's this feeling of dread the entire time, that this is an unstoppable force and everyone's terrified of them. And this just made it into like a nonsensical farce that didn't really have any pacing or mood.
I agree. And here's the thing. I can enjoy versions of Dracula that aren't atmospheric, shall we say.
Sure. Hey, I'm going to say it. Dracula Dead and Loving It is better than this. And that's not good, but it's better than this.
Yeah. Like, for example, the Keanu Reeves Dracula, not particularly well regarded.
Actually, some people do hold that.
No, I enjoy it. I think it doesn't have the atmosphere or anything like that, but it's not nonsensical, right? and I think it's objectively not a badly made movie. Whereas I think this is actually quite badly made TV. I think it's actually bad filmmaking in the sense, we talk about bad editing, bad pacing, bad acting. I don't think you can say that about that movie.
It's been too long since I've seen it to dispute all those things, so I'll just agree.
You might have one of them. I'll give you sure, but I think objectively it's significantly better than this.
Oh, it probably is, but I it's been a long time since I've seen it. I was not particularly fond of it for a number of reasons, but this is probably worse. This
might be my least favorite Dracula I've seen.
I was laughing. I was laughing because it was bad, not because it was intentionally funny. I was laughing at moments that were supposed to be a jump or were supposed to be taken seriously. And it's not like it was fun bad either. I'm saying I'm laughing at some moments. There was a couple of moments where I laughed, but there was a lot of it where, especially the middle of it, when he's just wandering around the castle and he's narrating a lot.
So boring.
Yeah, at least at the end, I appreciate the structure of the standoff. Where it actually gave it 10 minutes of that, of Agatha and Dracula kind of.
Do you know what I think? If the editing had been better, this ending could have been enjoyable. I think the edit of the scenes throws off the pace and makes it feel weird. But I actually think this could have been enjoyable. I think it didn't have that. You were kind of out by this point in the episode. You'd long made up your mind, so this wasn't. Anywhere near enough to redeem it. Because
there was a lot of goofy things around this, even though there was some good elements in the middle. All the nuns were in this weird formation, holding the stakes out completely straight, and it just looked kind of silly. They were like toys, just all lined up. Anyway, the end of the episode is that all the nuns get slaughtered. The Dracula kills a couple of them, but it's actually his wolves that do the rest because they're all holding crosses. So, well, I can't get to you, so if that's the case, you made your choice. The wolves it is. So they go for them, and.
It's just Agatha and Mina left.
Yeah, so they're downstairs. She's put some of the bread down. The what do you call it? The holy bread.
Yeah, Eucharist, I think it's called.
There you go. Because that's a barrier for Dracula. Which
I guess along with all the other religious iconography,
I've not heard of this one before, but it's not a complete stretch.
It feels like just an extension of the cross, right? It doesn't feel like a completely new thing.
But Jonathan shows up, and Mina. Apparently, even this barrier works like the door. They can be invited in. So Mina, against Agatha's best wishes, says, "No, I invite you in, Jonathan. I invite you in." And of course, the end of the episode. Again, the actual gore effect here, I did like. I just hate the rest of the episode, so I can't really praise it that much, but once again, it's Dracula sort of coming from within something else. In this case, it's Jonathan's face. He rips off Jonathan's face. It's very Hannibal Lecter.
It actually looks quite good because she's like, your eyes aren't blue, because it had made a big point of telling us how a good few times that he had really blue eyes. And it's like, what happened to your blue eyes? And he just goes, well, they're not mine, and then rips off the face. And that looked pretty good. I get why you want to end your episode on that.
If it had set up, if it had a consistent tone where from the start Dracula was going to be more sort of maniacally fun-loving, because he's not quite a Joker, but he's definitely, maybe Riddler's a good, he's more veering to Riddler. No, he's not a mastermind, but you know what I mean. He's definitely got this sense of humor to him, and if they'd kind of set that up from the get-go, that's what the tone of the whole thing was, I could have gotten into this in almost like an Evil Dead way, where this is going to be over-the-top gore with that type of humor. Because there is, when he rips out the wolf, when he rips off the face at the end, those moments from a special effects standpoint are pretty fun. But
and you've got things like the decapitated nun. These things do work in that context. I think even if it had set up that tone from the start, the editing would probably have still really killed the show for us. Yeah,
probably.
But we could have accepted a lot of these other flaws if that was the thing that it was going for the whole time.
Yeah, I think if the directing and editing and writing and acting were all better.
That's the thing. If the writing was consistent,
sure,
I don't think we'd be having as many problems with it, to be honest with you. Because if it leaned into just the goofy, crazy, kind of fun, maniacal Dracula the entire time, a lot of the writing problems we have would have been fixed.
But that would still leave directing, editing, and acting.
Yeah. It's not solving those. I think the bad acting at that point I could have gone with as just, okay, I'm enjoying this in a bad way still, because I can kind of get through bad acting in that sense. it's the directing and editing that would have even in this kind of best case scenario that we're kind of describing here.
Yeah, I think the directing, for me, it's like, it's not just that it's like really quick paced and really all over the place. It's more that it almost feels like there's a checklist of like tropes you can do for horror stuff, and the director's just like going through them as quick as possible to say, you know, this is a horror thing, so we're doing all these horror tropes as quickly as possible. But the reason why some of these horror tropes work is because like there's a lot of slow build up and then that one quick moment at the end, or there's a lot of, you know.
Yeah, I like the one at the start because it was establishing the tone still with the fly going behind his eye.
Sure.
I like that because, you know, this was so early on. I was like, okay, that's what we're going for. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then, you know, it was a while until anything else, and then it was like bang all at once.
Yeah, that's fair. But needless to say, even though there was a couple of bright moments of gore in there, and if the tone had leaned towards that way, maybe it'd feel much better. Ultimately, it's a bit of a complete mess. And
it is. I think it's frustrating in that I can see things I like in there. I don't just hate all of it entirely. There are elements that I'm like, yeah, I can see this working and that working, and just, you know, change things. I mean, you probably have to change still like 70-75% of it, don't get me wrong. But there's just enough in there that I like the idea of, even if not the execution. That it frustrates me that it's not that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Nun Helsing's probably the best part in terms of a character. Like Dracula, I hated the actor playing Dracula, both early on and then once he was, you know, just Englishified.
I preferred him a lot when he was Englishified. It didn't have the same presence, I guess. But
I didn't really feel like he was playing Dracula. I feel like he was just cocky, like, English dude. Like, I don't know, I just didn't.
I think, you know, he was doing the kind of charming vampire thing, right? And I was getting that. But I wasn't getting Dracula.
The attitude just wasn't right for me. It just wasn't right at all. So I can't recommend it. I have no interest in watching the other two episodes, even though the violence might be good, even though this whole second episode is more or less going to be on the boat, which I also, something I wanted a full episode on the boat, because that could be a really fun story of like just that voyage and Dracula picking people off as they go, but not like this. Not like this. So let us know what you thought of the first episode of Dracula in the comments below. You can like and subscribe, ding the bell on YouTube for the notifications. You can support the show a couple of different ways. You can rate the podcast on Apple Podcasts, give us 5 stars. You can share the podcast out, and you can of course support us financially over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You can do that for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your troubles. So go and have a look and see how you feel. You can of course get us on Twitter at mail_fuzz for channel updates. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you very much for joining us. And if you are into horror stuff, it would be silly not to recommend the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim, called Screams After Midnight. And we do, I mean, we're up to like 400 episodes at this point, so with, you know,
there's probably some better Dracula stuff in that amount.
Probably. We have never actually done the biggies though, funnily enough. We've done some good vampire movies. I don't know if we've done any big Dracula movies though. We've not done.
What's wrong with you?
We haven't done Lugosi yet. We haven't done the Hammer one yet.
You're a terrible person.
We'll get to them. Like, do you know how many horror movies? We started Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street on October 2017. We've still not finished those franchises because they keep giving us too many new movies. Slacking? We did 87 episodes in 2019.
Well, next year this year you should do at least 100.
That's more than 2 a week. No, it's not.
not.
Okay, it's just slightly under 2 a week, but it's close. It's close to 2 a week.
It is, yeah. But I mean, slacking. I'm just saying you could do better. The people deserve it.
Bite me. All right, that is us. Thank you very much for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?